They believed they ruled the shadows. They believed that every wire running through Europe, every whisper carried across borders, and every secret worth knowing would inevitably find its way back to Moscow. The Soviet Union built its strategic confidence on control. Control of territory, control of people, and above all, control of information. In their worldview, espionage was something you detected, contained, and eliminated. But at the height of the Cold War, while Soviet intelligence was obsessed with watching the surface of the world, the United States was quietly mastering something far more powerful: the ability to operate entirely beneath it. Berlin was the most dangerous city on earth. Divided, tense, crawling with spies, it was a place where the Cold War felt closest to turning hot. Every street, every building, every checkpoint carried the weight of global consequences. To the Soviets, Berlin was heavily monitored, locked down, and secure. What they never imagined was that beneath those streets, under layers of concrete and soil, American and British intelligence were preparing one of the boldest espionage operations ever attempted. Not with weapons, but with engineering, patience, and absolute confidence in their technological edge. The idea itself was audacious to the point of arrogance. Instead of trying to recruit more agents or steal documents piece by piece, the plan was to listen directly to the Soviet military's own communications. Not rumors, not secondhand reports, but the unfiltered conversations of commanders and planners who believed they were speaking in total security. This was espionage elevated to a new level, transforming the enemy's infrastructure into an open book. Constructing the tunnel was not a simple task. It required months of planning, extreme secrecy, and flawless execution. Thousands of tons of earth had to be removed without raising suspicion. Specialized equipment had to be installed in silence. Engineers worked in confined spaces, knowing that a single vibration, a single miscalculation, could expose everything. Above ground, Berlin continued its daily routine. Below ground, history was being shaped in absolute darkness. When the tunnel finally reached its target, it connected directly to Soviet communication lines carrying military traffic between East Germany and Moscow. This was not speculative intelligence. This was real-time access to conversations that revealed priorities, anxieties, and strategic thinking. For American intelligence analysts, this was a goldmine beyond imagination. Patterns emerged. Weaknesses became visible. The fog that normally surrounds an adversary began to lift. For nearly a year, the operation ran uninterrupted. Every day brought new recordings, new transcripts, new insights. Soviet officers spoke freely, convinced their systems were secure. They planned, argued, and reassured one another, never suspecting that their words were traveling straight into Western intelligence files. This constant flow of information did more than inform. It created confidence. The United States no longer had to guess Soviet intentions. It could listen to them form in real time. What the Soviets could not see was that this operation represented something much larger than a single intelligence success. It demonstrated a fundamental difference in how each side understood power. Soviet strategy relied on control through fear and rigidity. American strategy relied on flexibility, innovation, and a deep understanding of systems, including how those systems could be quietly turned against themselves. The most remarkable twist in this story is not that the tunnel existed, but that Soviet intelligence had early knowledge of it through a compromised channel. Yet even with this knowledge, they hesitated. Revealing the tunnel immediately would have exposed their own vulnerabilities and internal failures. So they waited, and in that waiting, the Americans continued to listen, learn, and refine their understanding of the Soviet military machine. This moment reveals the deeper psychological victory embedded in the operation. Even when the Soviets believed they were allowing the operation to continue on their terms, they were still reacting to an initiative they had not conceived. The tempo of the intelligence war had been set by the United States. Moscow was no longer dictating the flow of events. It was managing damage. When the tunnel was finally exposed publicly, the Soviet response was carefully staged. Cameras were invited. Statements were issued. Outrage was displayed for the world to see. But the global reaction told a different story. Instead of humiliation, observers saw ingenuity. Instead of failure, they saw technical mastery. The very attempt to shame the operation only amplified its symbolic power. Inside Soviet intelligence circles, the damage was deeper and more lasting. If a tunnel of this scale could exist beneath Berlin without detection, what else was possible? What systems could no longer be trusted? Which assumptions were no longer safe? Doubt crept into every analysis. Reports were questioned. Certainty eroded. And in a system that depended on rigid confidence, that erosion was devastating. The Cold War was not decided by a single moment or a single operation. But this tunnel stands as a perfect example of how the United States gained an advantage that could not be measured in missiles or troop numbers. It was an advantage built on understanding, patience, and the ability to see the battlefield where the enemy did not even realize one existed. The most powerful American spy operation of the Cold War did not rely on speed or force. It relied on silence. It allowed the enemy to speak freely, confidently, and repeatedly, while history listened from below. And that is why, even today, the Soviets never fully understood it.